And a convicted murderer says he's sorry in court. 26-year-old Timothy Holt sentenced to 23 years for killing 48-year-old Anthony Messick. Last fall, Messick was shot 12 times outside his parents' home on Belden Avenue. Police say Messick was dating Holt's mother, and the two broke up.
I had been thrown out of a car, drugged, and raped. And so I was looking for help.
But instead, a rape victim has to call 911 3 times. On the 911 tape, you hear the emergency operator yell at her and demand she pray with him. Oh, and he promises to send a patrol car that never comes. Had help arrived, could have it prevented a murder? Last fall, a rapist murdered. The victim's son convicted of killing him. Blasting 48-year-old Anthony Messick 12 times with a shotgun. The night before, Sue Kultiska, still drugged, tried to tell a 911 operator she'd been raped.
I'm trying to tell you what happened.
But you're not doing a good job of it.
I know that.
So I don't know how to help you. And if I can't help you, then, Sue, we're at ground zero. And this crying is not helping.
If you think the dispatcher was holier than thou there,
Even though this is not really police policy, we're going to have prayer together, you and I.
We're going to do what?
Have prayer.
Oh, that's great.
Hmm?
I don't even know where I belong.
I believe he used God to humiliate me.
Sue Kultiska has filed a citizen complaint with the city of Cleveland.
You know what?
You know, Sue,
May
God bless you.
You know what?
Yes,
May
God,
God
thank you, Sue. I
help
appreciate
you
you.
because you don't
Goodbye,
know what you're
Sue.
talking about.
The dispatcher may have hung up on her, but he hasn't heard the last from her. Sue believes that had she talked to police that night, her rapist may have been locked up and her son wouldn't have killed him the next morning. Her son currently serving 23 years to life.
That is not right.
Times just to get help. And on the 911 tape, you hear the emergency operator yell at her, even demand she pray with him. Oh, and then he promises to send a patrol car that never comes. If help arrived, could it have prevented a murder? Last fall, a rapist murdered. The victim's son convicted of killing him. Blasting 48-year-old Anthony Messick 12 times with a shotgun. The night before, Sue Kultiska, still drugged, tried to tell a 911 operator she'd been raped.
I'm trying to tell you what happened.
But you're not doing a good job of it.
I know that.
So I don't know how to help you. And if I can't help you, then, Sue, we're at ground zero. And this crying is not helping.
If you think the dispatcher was holier than thou there,
Even though this is not really police policy, we're going to have prayer together, you and I.
We're going to do what?
Have prayer.
Oh, that's great.
Hmm?
I don't even know where I belong.
I believe he used God to humiliate me.
This portable DVD player.
Morning, 7:43 the time right now. In the news today, a woman claiming she was raped by her boyfriend calls 911, but it takes an hour for the dispatcher to send out a car.
Instead, he decides to pray with the victim. Fox 8 News reporter Gary Libertor has our story this morning.
Witnesses on Belden Avenue on Cleveland's west side say they heard about a dozen gunshots around 9:30 one Sunday morning last September.
They were going off for about a minute. Gunshots going for about a minute.
They said a man had gotten out of his car, killed 48-year-old Anthony Messick, got back in his car and drove off. 6 weeks later, police arrested 27-year-old Timothy Holt of Rocky River. This March, Holt was convicted of the murder. He is serving 23 years to life in prison. The man he killed was dating his mother. She had told him that morning that her boyfriend had raped her overnight. Holt's mother had called 911 herself earlier that morning from a shelter at St. Herman's Monastery on Franklin Boulevard.
I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what's going on.
The woman told 911 she didn't know how she got there, and the operator told her a car was on the way. But she calls 911 again about 15 minutes later, and again is told someone will be out. Now outside, she calls a third time, now from a payphone, a full half hour after her initial call. And now she says she'd been staying with her daughter, but couldn't remember her daughter's phone number.
You shouldn't forget a phone number.
I know that. I know I shouldn't remember. I shouldn't forget anything, but everything's all mixed up.
And minutes later,
Sue, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Right now, even though this is not really police policy,
And this is how it went.
Our Father, thou art in heaven.
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be
Okay,
done.
Sue, since you know that, you should practice it.
When the city was investigating the homicide that took place, we reviewed the 911 tape and took immediate action in terms of disciplining the employee. The actions of the employee were totally inappropriate, and we disciplined the employee.
Gary Liberatore, Fox 8 News, Cleveland.
Well, the caller has now filed a complaint against the city. She says if the dispatcher had gotten someone there earlier, the shooting may have been avoided.
7:46 the time right now. Tragedy.